Thank you for your attention. I welcome your questions.
I don't know that Professor Stanger needs an intermediary here, but I'm just here to say questions.
Questions?
Yeah, that was a fascinating talk. Thank you for it. I just had a question. If you could expound a little bit on this suggestion you had about creating this cadre of, you call them network administrators, intermediaries.
Yeah.
Given some of the tensions you've described, interagency tensions, some of these rivalries, where would you see such a cadre, and would it be cross-cutting? And would you talked about a new sort of commitment revitalizing public service. So this would be vested in the state. How do you see this sort of playing out?
That's a really great question, and it's excellent. I mean, I was part of a task force chaired by Paul Volcker on the changing nature of government service, and we looked at these issues, and what we kept coming back to is that government is doing its work differently. But look at how we're training people in schools. It doesn't acknowledge that at all. That's sort of my point about foreign policy. You know, we talk about it as though there were a couple of guys in suits, you know, issuing edicts about what should happen, and then there's the, you know, these bureaucrats just systematically executing it. We all know that's not the way it operates. And so one of the things that I point out in my book is that we've hollowed out government. So you can't have effective oversight. You do need, you know, you can have an argument about what kind of expertise you need in-house, and some people would say, oh, you know, it's terrible USAID doesn't have engineers. We need engineers to hire engineers at USAID. My response is really, what you need is to change the way you think about governance and embrace more of a 21st century notion of governance, which acknowledges that a person's career probably isn't going to be in the same place. They're going to move between the public and private sector. Ideally, we would want them moving between different agencies, because that's going to facilitate the kind of collaboration we want to see that works so well with outsourced government. But your point is really well taken, because it's really interesting. There's this big debate in Washington right now. You're probably following it on post-war reconstruction. The lessons of Iraq and Afghanistan. So what should we do? How can we do that better? It's all focused on the who's in charge question. And what's fascinating to me about it is the typical Washington response is, well, we've got a problem of oversight and accountability. We need to build a new bureaucracy to be in charge of that. So the Department of Homeland Security is really an illustration of that reaction, right? Homeland Security, my God, the country's not safe. Let's build a huge new bureaucracy layered onto the other ones, and that's going to take care of it. Instead, what you see is just more problems of coordination, more turf battles, more interagency rivalries. So the Special Inspector General for Iraq has suggested, if you look on their website, you'll see they've got a suggestion for a new government agency to deal with these issues. To me, the question is how you could do this without creating some kind of new bureaucracy, but instead perhaps have units within the State Department / USAID that coordinate with the Pentagon and have greater cooperation there. But I have problems with the idea of adding additional layers of bureaucratic complexity. Because, you know, in an ideal world, if you started from scratch, you might really centralize this, right? But unfortunately, in the real world, we can't start from scratch, so we're forced to deal with the reality. But great question. Yeah.
Allison, to promote transparency, I should say that I and many of us here work for ARD, a contractor implementing USAID projects based in Burlington. But I was struck by the fact that when you define contractor, you don't differentiate the for-profits from the not-for-profits or the NGOs. And when you talk about the scandals of contracting, in your research, do you see a difference in those activities that are being implemented by for-profit contractors vis-a-vis the NGOs? It seems like increasingly within the Obama administration, some are differentiating between the for-profits and the NGOs. And what do you see the difference, and what does the research tell you?
Yeah, that's another great question. In my book, I lumped them together, and I did that for a reason, because I was trying to make this point that, look, American power has been privatized. So change the way you're talking about foreign policy. You really have to be thinking about how to better collaborate with this whole coalition of forces that, if you do it the right way, can really bring about enormous good in the world. But someone can push back and say, why are you lumping the for-profits in with the not-for-profits? They have very different objectives and goals. And that's probably true, right? What I see right now is you've got a trade-off in the development realm, perhaps between efficiency and, non-profit motives. I'm not convinced the profit motive is a boogeyman if the doings take place in full sunlight and everybody can see how the money is being spent. Now, to you then, I mean, oh my God, she wants to regulate, she wants to have us fill out all these forms and make our life more miserable. I'm convinced there are new ways of doing this that exploit technology and the internet so that it doesn't have to be so onerous to render things transparent and still get the job done well. But this is the area I think you'll see in the years ahead that people are going to be looking at, is do you get better results with nonprofits than you do not-for-profits? And what I've seen so far, I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I see evidence of both. I see shortcomings, strengths and weaknesses in both approaches. But that would be a great realm. That would be a great topic for the next book.